When you see around the globe the maldistribution of wealth, the desperate plight of millions of people in underdeveloped countries, when you see so few haves and so many have-nots, when you see the greed and the concentration of power within, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism and whether greed's a good idea to run on?
Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the kind of grinding poverty you're talking about, the only cases in recorded history are where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it's exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that. So that the record of history is absolutely crystal clear that there is no alternative way so far discovered of improving the lot of the ordinary people that can hold a candle to the productive activities that are unleashed by a free enterprise system.
But it seems to reward not virtue as much as ability to manipulate the system.
And what does reward virtue? You think the communist commissar rewards virtue? You think a Hitler rewards virtue? You think, excuse me, if you'll pardon me, do you think American presidents reward virtue? Do they choose their appointees on the basis of the virtue of the people appointed or on the basis of their political clout? Is it really true that political self-interest is nobler somehow than economic self-interest? You know, I think you're taking a lot of things for granted. And just tell me where in the world you find these angels who are going to organize society for us. Well, I don't even trust you to do that.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. This is Eric Dudas, and I'm joined, as always, by the co-host of Fully Threaded. He's a man who has no fear whatsoever of flying in an airplane full of fastener people, all dressed in fastener garb. He's Brian Musker. Brian, how are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Actually, flying in a plane full of fastener people would be much less worrying to me than a plane losing an engine over the Atlantic, which I've done as well.
Well, I don't think many people would argue with you about that one, Bri.
I hope not.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everyone. This is episode 14, and it's going live on the fullythreaded.com website on October 28th, 2010. On today's show, we're going to get things kicked off with another visit from our friend Rob Lucas. He's just back from the Taiwan Fastener Show, and he's going to give us a rundown what happened there, tell us a little bit about what he saw happening, and give us a glimpse into his forthcoming NIFS presentation. Then we're going to have a great talk. I know everyone's going to enjoy listening to our conversation with Andy Cohn of Duncan Bolt, and also the newly elected president of the Pac-West Association. He is a really, really smart guy, has a lot of interesting perspectives, and everyone's going to enjoy this conversation a lot. Then we're going to visit again with the outspoken Greg Wiener of Quickscrews International. We promised everyone we'd have him back right before the elections, and this is the FTR pre-election special, so it'll be another unvarnished conversation with our friend from the West Coast. We should explain why we started the episode today the way we did, and that was the late, great Dr. Milton Friedman. He was appearing on the Phil Donahue Show back in 1979, and we actually grabbed that cut from a recent Mark Levin show, and it just seemed appropriate for this time.
Oh, he's an amazing man, and people at times can be really upset with him. But if there ever was a time when people needed to really think about what Milton Friedman's views on capitalism are, now and the next 2 weeks are really that time.
That's right. And we'll be talking, as we said, with Greg Wiener in a little while. But let's just put it out there again. Here at FTR, we are staunch supporters of the free enterprise system. And we know that most of you are too. And I guess it's just a good time to remember, with the election coming up, that if your idea of moving ahead is by arbitrary bureaucratic fiat, then vote for what we have right now, or don't vote at all. But if you're like us, then listen to Dr. Friedman, and let's fight off what we have being inflicted on us right now. I mean, I don't know if I can think of a better way of putting it, and we're not going to rake on this too much, but there you have it.
Also, you can take out your copy of Atlas Shrugged, dust it off and read it, and it'll renew your interest as well. And if you want any other evidence of how Milton Friedman's views really do work, he was brought into Chile when I was there, actually, after the collapse of the Marxist government, to actually get the economy working, and Chile has the second best economy in South America. Today, it was the worst then.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. I hope we don't get to that point in the United States, however.
You're very close to it. All you've got to have is the president declare himself president for life, and you're there.
Well, we have a chance to stop that and head it all off right now, and of course in 2 more years, so let's get at it. We are the people who bring you FastenersClearinghouse.com, and we're a search engine for industrial fasteners that I hope your team is using out there. There's no charge to search and source. Over 500,000 lines available at our site at www.fastenersclearinghouse.com. We're also always inviting everyone out there to list their inventory with FCH. We know we can bring you some extra sales, and that's really our mission. We're easy to get in touch with, so please don't hesitate. We'll talk to you anytime about that subject.
And we'll provide all the help you need to get your stuff loaded the best way.
That's right. We've tried to make that as easy as possible as well. Now, we keep our eye on what's going on with the FCH search engine very, very closely. And what we've seen is that for the month of October, which we're closing out here, we really finished the month off with pretty good stride. But I have to say, a little bit earlier in the month, it was kind of slow. So we're really, I guess, in a situation right now where we've got some pretty good momentum. What have you been working on since the last episode, Brian, that you have to tell folks about?
Well, a couple of things. One is, in addition to the members pages, we've put a couple of little graphs there, which when the member logs in, they can see really, a small graph with a link giving the split up of the hits that they've had on their items. And we've got a little pie chart which shows them the distribution of their own parts, what percentage they've got of bolts and nuts and screws and things like that. And then I've got another 2 I'm planning at the moment to give it their proportion relative to the overall proportion we have of all our 550,000 line items, what proportion of bolts and what proportion of nuts. So we've got a lot of statistics stacked away, really. So we're just bringing some of them out now.
That sounds great. Yeah, making the user experience a little bit better is something that we're always trying to do. I had a funny experience today with a fellow. He was using our site, and he asked us about using the mil-spec search, and he wanted to know, well, how does that work? And so I was explaining to him that there's actually a separate interface right on the FCH search page for mil-spec searching. And he's looking, and I was trying to explain it to him, and I said, it's right there. The tab says mil-spec search, and of course, it has a camouflage background for the military. That was kind of the theme. And he finally saw it, and it was one of those moments where, he was feeling kind of silly that he hadn't seen it right off. He says, well, that's it. It's in camo. How'd you expect me to see it?
Actually,
pretty funny.
Right. But the truth is that we've spoken to numerous people, and probably next to no one knows what a tab does. Those tabs, I would have thought that most of our users are more familiar with a file folder and tabs than they are with computers. So I would have thought that interface would be really explanatory, but
yeah, it's the search for the perfect interface. I don't know if it'll ever be solved, but it was kind of a funny moment.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a couple of news items. Of course, everybody knows that the NIFS West Show is coming up, and we're getting geared up for that like most of the industry is. And I got a word from the NFDA that they have their final lineup for the panel discussion that they're going to be hosting. That's going to take place on Monday, November 8th from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., and this is at Mandalay Bay. And here's the lineup that they've come up with. It sounds really, really great. First, it's Mike Wren, the CEO of Heads and Threads International. David Nelson, he's a former senior purchasing executive from Honda, John Deere, and some others. Stephen Fang, we talked with him in a previous episode of Fully Threaded. He's on the board of the TFTA, the Taiwan Fastener Traders Association. Jeff Leader, and he's the president of the Elgin Fastener Group, Ohio Rod Division. And then finally, Mark Lennart. And we've talked with him, of course, many times. He's the executive vice president of the NFDA. So get out there and get in on this panel discussion because it's taking place on Monday right before the show really begins in full force, and it sounds like a powerhouse panel.
That's if you've got your booth and everything set up. Yeah, for us it's usually a run around trying to get cables and wires and things all put in the right places.
Yes, it can be a screamer.
Right.
But I have faith that we'll pull it off yet again.
Right.
NFDA also announcing the 2011 University of Industrial Distribution Program. The registration for this is open. It's happening March 7th through the 11th, 2011, and this is in Indianapolis, Indiana. It sounds like a very, very worthwhile program. There's information about this at the NFDA website, and that website address is www.nfda-fastener.org.
You make sure you add the dash fastener. You end up in the Funeral Directors Association otherwise.
Yeah, never a good experience.
Right.
So with NIFS coming up, there is an 18-page preview in the latest Fastener Technology International magazine, and that starts on page 84. Check that out. They do a great job of really laying it all out and presenting some of the featured seminars and other events that are taking place surrounding the show. Don't forget the digital edition is also available, and you can always get that at www.fastenertech.com. You know, I was talking with Mike McNulty. We were setting up for the next episode of Fully Threaded his Fastener News Report, and he mentioned to me that nominations are being accepted right now for the December 2010 issue of Fastener Technology International, and that's the FTI Technical Achievement Awards. People should be aware that they can submit nominations to Mike, and this should include information about the nominee as well as their technical development. But send that over to Mike. He's at mcnulty@fastenertech.com. And this is something that's been going on since 2006. So,
Okay.
Maybe I'll submit you.
Yeah, the scrubber. What a tour de force of technical achievement.
Exactly.
Oh, and I noticed that in the American Fastener Journal there's a little article pointing out that Scanwell Logistics has just joined the Global Fastener Network as a preferred supplier.
Is that right?
Yeah. Amazing what you find online, isn't it?
Rob Lucas of Global Fastener Network, of course, is going to appear in our first segment coming up in a few moments, and he does mention Scanwell and talks a little bit about what he's seeing in terms of the latest shipping situation. We should probably present our next feature, which I don't know if this is going to become a regular feature here on Fully Threaded or not, but it's Screw Up of the Week.
This is the beauty of this one.
Well, we got a little bit of feedback from our last episode, not the kind we really wanted either, and it all had to do with the Pac-West softball score. Now, come on, Brian, what is all this about?
Well, this really is terrible, but the fact was that when I got to the softball match, I asked someone what the difference was, and someone explained to me that the suppliers are in red and distributors in blue, and that's how I went on from that moment, because they all were the same to me. They're all just what we would know as just fastener distributors. So my score was completely round the wrong way. I should have said the red T-shirts won. That would have been closer, okay? However, we'd hope not to make a a regular feature of our screw-ups. But I suppose if anything was correct, it would be a screw-up for a fastener show.
I'm still confused. I don't know what red and blue means. Did the suppliers win or did the distributors win?
The red T-shirts won. However, Mike McNulty reported that was correct.
Okay. And I know that we tweeted about this. We're tweeting fools at this point, so it's all out there.
I won't give any more scores, okay?
Just as long as you can tell the difference between a red state and a blue state, I guess we're okay.
Well, I can tell. I'm not colorblind. I was just someone explained it to me wrongly, so it was fine. Anyway, enough of that, right?
Okay, and this has been our screw-up of the week.
Right.
One item of legitimate news that's probably worth mentioning is something from a story I saw on Breitbart today. Headline, Internet accounts for 7.2% of British economy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a huge percentage.
It's really kind of hard to imagine. In the article, it says, among other things, quote, the research also predicted that by 2015, the British Internet economy is likely to grow to 10% of GDP, eclipsing the financial sector.
Wow, that will be extraordinary because in Britain is the financial hub of Europe still.
It's really, really unbelievable. And some of the metrics surrounding the growth of online commerce, online business, social media included in that, they're just amazing statistics. And, of course, we've mentioned it before. We'll say it again. At the NIFS show this year on Tuesday, November 9th at 3 p.m., we'll be presenting a seminar on the subject of social media and how it relates to the fastener world and you're operating your business. So headlines like this just drive that theme home. You know, there's no avoiding this.
The British must have moved a very, very long way past wandering around clutching books of surplus parts then. To their hearts.
Well, maybe the fellow from Fastener and Fixins magazine will be out there this year. We can ask him.
All right.
Well, with that, why don't we get this show going and move on to our first segment.
Yeah, let's hear what Rob Lucas has to say.
We're joined now by the president of Fidelis Fasteners, the globetrotting Mr. Rob Lucas. Rob, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, Eric, how are you? How are things in the States these days?
Well, we're rocking and rolling over here, getting the phones all heated up for the big show coming up. And speaking of shows, you have just returned from the Taiwan show. That was back October 19th and 20th. What did you find out there?
Yeah, yet another trip overseas for me. Well, the show was decently attended. It was, relatively small. It's for Taiwan. It was in Kaohsiung. A lot of the same old usual suspects as far as vendors go. A lot of trading companies were there. Most of the larger manufacturers, everyone know, were present, had some booth space. Most of the, I'd say, traffic was a mixed blend. I'd say probably the majority of people were European. There was, by far less North American visitors than there were European. There were still quite a few Asians that also visited the show. Many of the importers were there. A lot of customers and distributors in the States were there. So it was a mix of an array of people that came. I think overall that was a fairly well attended show. I think that the folks that promoted it did a really good job, and it got a lot of noise, a lot of activity. The only drawback to it, I'd say, was it was probably just too small of an arena. The aisles were really, really narrow, and it was difficult to get anywhere. And if you know everybody or you start to talk to a lot of vendors, it takes a long time to get through there, and there's nowhere to move. So it hindered you getting around.
Was there an overriding theme that you could tell from this year's show?
No, I had spoken to some of the, I had a lot of factory visits prior to and after the show itself, and I'm not real sure that the Taiwanese vendors were actively wanting to have this show. They haven't done it in a very long time. It probably won't happen again for a long time. I think the way they see it is it's just an avenue to reduce prices. You get people out there to start shopping, and it causes them some price problems. So they would prefer not to have it. But I do think it was a good place to see most everybody. However, you can see most everybody without that show. But it was a good opportunity to go to one location and visit everybody instead of going to down the street. So overall, no theme. There was a handful of people that tried to do something different. They gave out some Starbucks coffee in Taiwan, which was great. One factory did. There was others that promoted their wares. Everybody had booths that related to what they did. There were a handful of vendors that had larger than normal booths, and of course, those were the larger vendors.
Sure. I was curious about that theme because earlier in the year we were talking with Stephen Fong of the TFTA, and he was mentioning that they were really making a push for the higher-end specials. I mean, did you see any evidence of that strategy being put into place?
I don't necessarily know if I did. There were plenty of mill-type vendors there, but no more than you'd see anywhere else.
Okay.
And again, there were a lot of the same old standard, larger manufacturers that have been around for years there. So I didn't really get a feel for it being geared towards specials. There were, however, again, quite a few brokers and trading companies there that advertised to do that kind of mill business, but nothing that was out of the ordinary. The guys, however, that promoted the show were running around. If you want to talk about a theme, they all were wearing Halloween outfits, witch outfits. So to see Asian people running around celebrating Halloween was kind of nice. It's kind of like, oh, I'm home. Then I went, wait, I am home. This is my second home.
Oh, that's cool. Well, during the last visit, we were talking with you. You were introducing the Global Fastener Network, and you're always keeping your thumb on the pulse of the industry, and I'm sure you picked up a lot more buzz while you were out in Taiwan. What do you see going on out there? What's the lay of the land these days?
Well, yeah, the Global Fastener thing is still plugging away. It's accruing members as we speak. To me, it's a good idea. I think it's an opportunity for distributors. It's an opportunity for suppliers. It makes sense for this industry. So I'm just going to keep my head down and try to do what's best. And as far as from what I see in the market, I was both in Taiwan and China the last trip. I spent a few days in Taiwan, and I showed up to China for a few days before I came back home. So I had another fairly good lay of the land over there. I would say that they are producing at a pretty good clip. I wouldn't say that their capacity is maxed out, but they're running pretty high. And for them, they've got good business. Both for that is Europe and the States demand. However, on this side, I think that it's going to start to slow down. It's been relatively quiet. I think in the last 6-7 days, it's been quieter than it has been in the past. Now, I'm not saying it's dead. It's just a little quieter. And I suspect we'll see that going into the whole November, December holiday season. You're going to have a hell of a lot less, more activity. And people are going to hold up on spending till the first of the year.
Did you get a feel for anything related to shipping while you were over there?
No, I haven't. And I talked to Scanwell quite a bit, and there's some capacity that's opened up and freed up. The premium ship dates are passed for the holidays, so I don't see anything as far as any travesties where things are being held up and delayed as they were in the past. Now, I could be wrong, but I haven't seen it or heard it, but it just doesn't appear to be that way. So I think things are settling down.
Right. I guess if demand is moderating, then that would take a little of the pressure off, wouldn't it?
Well, I still think the manufacturers are, again, making product at a pretty good clip, but I just don't think overall, when you look at all the procurement that goes into the world, it's not all fasteners. And I think a lot of that stuff that was put on cargo vessels for previous times is subsided a little bit. Either they've got their product here, they've got their buys in, or they're prepared for the holiday sales. And now you've got some free space with the ocean carriers.
Got it. Okay, well, that's the wrap-up of the Taiwan show and the current market situation. Let's look at the events coming down the road. Of course, we've got NIFS West. What do you have lined up for that, Rob?
Well, this year I've got Fidelis has a booth at the Vegas show, and I'm also doing a presentation on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. That, from what I understand, this is the first time that the NIFS has done something on the show floor. And you, as well as I, know that we're both presenting there. It's going to be on the show floor. There'll be some type of a schedule throughout the day. I know mine's, I think, from 1 to 2:30 or 1 to 2. And the presentation I'm going to give is an overview of how to deal with Asia from a sourcing standpoint and trying to minimize your risk. Now, there's a whole lot that goes into it, and it's going to be tough to do that in an hour. But what I really wanted to do was kind of focus on some key points for the first 20, 30 minutes, and then open it up for the floor to have some kind of Q&A interactiveness. I'm sure that people out there have questions that I haven't thought about that maybe I can help them or will help us all out. So I'm hoping that this thing will turn out to be a good session for everyone, including myself, and I'm going to keep plugging away. after that, the Vegas show is over. I've got yet another stunt over to Asia. I'll do a trip to Thailand, Vietnam, and China. And hopefully I'll be able to stay home for a few weeks in December.
Well, I'll believe that when I see it. You're a man who's always on the go.
It has been a heck of a year. It's been fun, though. I'm having a good time, and I'm glad to see the economy picking back up. We've got to do something to maintain our economy. And obviously we're all dealing with the people overseas, but that is an indicator of what's going on everywhere. And if there's things to assemble, that must mean that there's some economy that's being increased. How long that'll last, I don't know, but let's just keep our fingers crossed and hope it doesn't revert to where it was in 2008, 2009.
I'm with you on that. Rob Lucas, thanks for being with us. We'll see you out in Vegas.
Always good to talk to you, Eric, and I'll see you in Las Vegas.
Mr. Andy Cohn, coming up next.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
This is Gary Rasimsky, District Manager of the Fastenal Company in southeastern Wisconsin. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
We're joined now by one of the heavyweights of the industry. He's Andy Cohn, owner of Duncan Bolt out of Santa Fe Springs, California. Welcome to Fully Threaded, Andy.
Thank you very much, Eric, and thank you for the introduction, even if it does refer to my size.
Okay.
Now, you're just back from the Pac-West fall meeting, and Brian, of course, you were out there joining the whole Pac-West gang, and the news from that meeting is that you are now the president of the Pac-West Association. Isn't that true?
That is correct. Pac-West was formed by the merger of the LA Fastener Association and the Western Association of Fastener Distributors. Duncan's been a member of both for many years, and we're one of the people that really like the idea of the combined association, just, one set of dues instead of two, and a slightly smaller number of meetings every year.
Okay.
The Western Association of Fastener Distributors was founded by 5 fastener distributors who were tired of schlepping all the way to Florida to go to NFDA meetings. And they enjoyed the networking, the relationship among the people, and the information that they learned, and also they enjoyed going to nice resorts and playing golf. And in the 1960s and 70s, that model worked. And today, everybody's going so fast, has such busy agendas, that both of our associations, or both of our predecessor organizations, like every fastener association, found that it was harder and harder to pry people out of their seats, away from their computers, and get them to those meetings. The associates want to be there. They want to be with their customers, but, they're being dragged to an increasingly large number of different events these days.
Well, there's a lot to be said about that, and that includes a couple of events that are coming up in the near future. But before we get too far into that, I was hoping you could discuss with us a little bit about Duncan. Now, you and your wife, Virginia, procured Duncan Bolt, in 1988?
Correct. I was working for one of the fastener importers at that time, and My wife, interestingly enough, actually, my wife and I both come from fastener families. My father's been in the fastener importing business since 1948.
Wow.
And Virginia's father was a manufacturer here in Los Angeles, owned a company called Sullivan Bolt. And we actually met through a friend, got married, and ultimately in 1988 bought Duncan Bolt from David Duncan, who had started it back in 1953. He was looking to retire, and I was looking for something that we could do together and a little different than working for a big corporation.
Those are deep roots in the industry, that's for sure. Any fastener tattoos work into that whole story?
No, just about everything else but. But that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I'm going to have to think of that. Maybe we'll come up with a corporate logo and tattoo it on all of them. You know, interestingly enough, somebody could make a lot of money with that, because just think, if we could get you to put a Duncan Bolt tattoo prominently on your body, it would just be that much harder for you to change loyalties and go to work for the competition, wouldn't it?
Right, yeah.
I see 4-color full-page ad on this one, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's one of the interesting sidebars about our office is basically in the suburbs of Los Angeles. This is a big market, and there's pluses and minuses to a big market. I've worked in the fastener industry in San Francisco, in Denver, in Stamford, Connecticut,
wow,
in Chicago, and here. And the smaller markets are less competitive, less crazy, but they're also dominated by personalities to the point of, if you go to any middle-sized city in the United States, there's somebody who owns the fastener business there.
Does that continue to this day?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And what it causes is antagonism. You know, everybody's related to everybody, maybe not by blood, but they all started working for the XYZ Corp, and then this guy left in 1989 and started his own, and they've never spoken since. And then his two salesmen left in 1996 and started their own, and it's a small enough world that everybody spends a big part of their time being annoyed at each other. If you're in New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles, the number of generations that have gone on since the families split up and stopped speaking to each other and stole each other's employees, they're big enough worlds, and it's happened so much that people are used to it, and it's sort of, it's no longer newsworthy.
Well, that's an interesting take on it.
And it's very true. I mean, if you go to Phoenix, Arizona, or Denver, Colorado, or Portland, Oregon, just to name a few, because I know them, I mean, there are people there who are still in a big way not speaking to each other because of their history together in previous entities. Duncan had the luxury of the fact that Mr. Duncan had built a very nice business supplying both users and distributors, but he focused on such peripheral items that nobody really considered him a competitor. He was just a necessary evil source where you went for very unusual parts like castle nuts and left-hand nuts and things that, once a month you had to go buy some of for a customer, and you were just glad to have a source here. And so in that sense, it really fit the model that I wanted for business, because I was used to selling to distributors, but I knew that ultimately our success would be in selling to used consumers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Even that's an interesting sort of view, because a lot of the people we deal with on a daily basis are fearful of actually having to deal with users. Not necessarily fearful, they just don't like it.
Well, there's a different model. I mean, what's the function of a distributor? In the olden days, and this is not original, but Cecil Couch, who was around the fastener industry for many, many years, still is, and was the sales manager for Nucor for a number of years, used to talk about how the American factories who made bolts and nuts, Lamson and Sessions and Lake Erie and Stanadyne and people like that, they sold to users direct, but they didn't want to sell to the maintenance department because that was beneath them. So they might be selling in the front door of that factory that made washing machines or automobiles or something, but they needed somebody to take care of the side door. And that's the only reason that they tolerated having distributors for their products.
Oh, that's interesting.
And yeah, I mean, so the manufacturer over the years went to classes where people said to him, "Do one thing and do it well," and they realized that they were better at making it than they were at selling it, and so bit by bit they turned more and more of the responsibility for that over to distribution.
How did you drive the evolution of your business away from just that specialty niche market dealing with distributors into the model that you described? How did that work?
Slowly, painfully, inch by inch, keeping your eyes open and your mind open to new opportunities, trying things, failing, trying other things. I have a unique perspective in my mind in that, having worked for a fastener importer for 6 years, I probably visited 600 fastener distributors over the years.
Wow.
And you see some who are dynamic and moving forward, and you see some who come in and want to do it the exact same way that they've always done it. But I think one of the things that I know very strongly is that there's no guarantee that you can repeat what your father did or your predecessor did and be guaranteed success. It's a changing world. All you have to do is go to China to see that.
Yeah.
Right. And speaking of that, I noticed that on your website, you're one of the few fastener distributors that I've seen that actually has an entire Chinese language version of your website.
We do, because we opened a branch in Shanghai in 2007, and it's not for purchasing purposes, but an actual sales branch. We followed a customer or two there, and we represent some American product lines which we do sell in the Chinese market. So they paid a guy $49 to duplicate our English website, for which we paid $10,000. And he translated it into Chinese.
Wow. Okay. Actually, we spoke with one of the guys, I think it was Jim Derry, and he was explaining to us that in one of the NFDA's views of how to help American fastener distributors is the fact that that's a great market that is missing in China is the whole knowledge of how to set up a distributor system like the U.S. has.
Yeah, and we could do a couple of days conversations on that. I would say that the big difference is that they have 5,000 fastener factories who will make anything you want in a week. So the need for distribution hasn't become as evident to the manufacturers there as it is here.
Okay, good point.
But that's been one of the most interesting sidebars for Duncan, and it's part of what you were asking me a minute ago. You know, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you become a distributor that's going to succeed in 2011 and 2015? You know, when I worked in California in the 1980s, all of the manufacturing business was moving from the San Francisco Bay Area to Los Angeles, to the hated Los Angeles. But hate it or not, this is where people were building factories that consumed fasteners.
Yeah.
Today, that's no longer the case. After the recession, all the people that shut down in Southern California are not going to come back to California. They've moved to the third world, or they've moved to somewhere where Nevada or Arizona or Idaho or somewhere where costs are considerably lower than they are in California. So distributors here are faced with either becoming extinct or learning to do new and different things.
Or working out how to become even more efficient.
How big of a hit has the California fastener distribution business taken, would you figure, since its heyday?
Well, I'm going to try and answer that just in the context of the most recent financial downturn. I think that if you looked at 2007 and 2008 versus, the low point of 2009, I think across the board people were down 30 to 40%. And I think they're starting to see some of that coming back. But it's coming. It's never going to return to that. If your question was that heyday really the top, or was there a higher top earlier? I don't know that I'm qualified to speak to that. It depends.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's your perspective. I was really curious about the actual number of distributors that you felt like might have left the area or the region, because one of the comments that we've frequently made over the last couple of years here is that we're surprised that we haven't seen more distributors either just leave the business or merge or be acquired. We just haven't seen the amount that you would think.
I agree with you completely, and I also wonder about that. I mean, when you look at the number of big manufacturers that went away, are people holding on by a thread? Are they learning to live on less? I think if you went through and looked at it, that what's happened is that a fastener distributor, like a doctor, the owner, is the one who's taken the big hit. He may have a couple fewer employees. He may have reduced people's compensation, but probably in the individually owned, family-owned fastener business, they're playing golf twice a week instead of 4 times.
Yeah. I was talking to some guy at one of the shows, the NIFS West shows, one of our earlier ones, and he was telling me about something about a shake-up in the industry, and they were saying that his view was that at one stage, we always said this, well, it was about, say, 6,000 distributors in the US, and he said that there was a time when there were that many fastener distributors in California.
It's a huge population here. There's no doubt about that. I mean, and it's I've never worked in the New York market for a prolonged length of time, but in Chicago and in Los Angeles, the fastener world is so big that you can have 2 people sitting next to each other who have both been in it for 35 or 40 years and know no one in common.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we compete with the same 7 or 8 or 10 fastener distributors, but the aerospace fastener industry, which is actually larger than the industrial, is a whole separate universe. They have their own trade show, they have their own dinner meetings, and there are very little overlap. And then there are people who are in both, and then there are people who are in the military and aerospace, which is different than the true aerospace fastener people, or the MS and AN,
Yep.
And we sell to the transportation industry and manufacturing, but there are a couple of people out here who specialize in furniture. There were a number of people who specialized in the motorhome, because there are a lot of motorhome manufacturers here. So, there are, it's a big enough world that there are a lot of niches.
Right. And we see that.
In Denver, Colorado, when I worked as a distributor there, you carried everything.
Interesting. Yeah, we see that sort of broad spectrum of different people. In fact, I'm looking at as we speak, a whole set of fasteners uploaded with NAS numbers and AN numbers and all sorts of things into them. A new member who has a lot of military stuff as well as ordinary stuff.
Well, you mentioned NIFS a moment ago, Brian, and I suppose that it's a good opportunity to switch gears here a little bit, because the Pac-West Association is planning some things for the big Vegas show coming up here shortly. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Andy?
We've always believed that educating members, and again, we started in the West where the communication from the bosses in Cleveland and Chicago didn't always make it out this far. So believe it or not, in the 1970s, the LA Fastener Association published its own surplus list, typed up once a year and mailed to all the members. We've always done think how many millions it could be worth today if we'd only had the sense to put it on computer.
Well, you got school fastest clearinghouse.
Yeah. That could be another whole day, too, because there have been an awful lot of attempts to do that, and many of which have been unsuccessful.
Correct.
But we've done training both from the level of, one of the things that makes me the most proud is we have a 1 day and then separately a 3-day training course for brand new people coming into the fastener industry on fastener basics. And the association has really embraced the idea that training is important and tried to support it in every way. The Fastener Show West is such a gathering. We have each year increased our offering there. So, for example, all day Monday, there's a Brent Blendolf course that we sponsor on fastener technology, everything from product standards and heat treat. I mean, obviously not an introductory course for a new 24-year-old coming into the business who knows nothing about it, but taking a fastener person that's worked for a while who really needs to start to get into some of the technical stuff and some of the QA stuff. We do a morning course on print reading for fastener sales and fastener professionals, we call it. But it's, how to look down into a print and figure out if you're talking about a standard part or a special part. This year, for the first time, we're doing a course called Solid Modeling and Computer-Aided Design for Fastener and Assembly Components. That's also going to be offered on Monday. And then one of the things that we think will be really interesting to people, and again, this talks about a different fastener community, is we recently did a dinner meeting on DFARS and trying to update people on, the new requirements in DFARS for government purchases. And we were just flabbergasted at the people that came out of the woodwork and came to that meeting. And so it was so much requested by the aerospace types that we're running that again in Las Vegas on Monday afternoon. It's part of the fabric of what we at Pacific West feel is important, and it's what the fastener industry needs. Now, getting people to admit they want it sometimes is difficult, but this is a big part of our focus, and we've actually even split off our training efforts into a separate organization called the Fastener Training Institute, and we're starting to take some of the courses that we've done here in Los Angeles and throughout the West on the road and offer them at various venues that we think that people would be interested in. We've just done one in Chicago in concert with the IFI, and we're going to continue to take it where people want it.
Now, these courses, these presentations are taking place on Monday. That's November 8th, and that's at the NIFS Show West coming up here. And folks can get more information on this at the Pac-West website. Is that true, Andy?
That is correct.
And the address for that is www.pac-west.org. Now, are you participating in any of this directly?
I'm the registrar and the backup speaker in case anybody's plane is late.
Okay. So, Andy, the question I have is that the various fastener associations all are attempting to do some work on training. I mean, they all believe training is important. Is it possible that you can see efficiencies by combining these training efforts?
Absolutely. I've been involved in 4 fastener associations, and as you said, every one of them does some. But I'm going to be self-centered and say that Pac-West does much better and has much more experience. We're not looking to lord that over anybody, but to embrace the other associations. And we've done a number of instances already of jointly offering our training classes, and that's one of the reasons actually that we've split off the Fastener Training Institute. And we think that the subject of getting the training out there to everybody through all of the different technological formats and in person is the most important thing. Traditionally, for reasons that I do not understand, the Los Angeles Fastener Association had the most extensive training efforts that I had seen as I had traveled around the country. And I'm really happy that they have continued to make it grow and to refine it. And the programs get better and better. Sure, it's revenue generating for us, but deep down underneath, the best thing in the world. I mean, I would love it. One of the European fastener companies that I've met has developed their own training, and they require their new employees to take their 3 courses, which are offered over and over and over again, within 6 months of going to work there. You know, getting more knowledgeable, more educated people working in our industry is a plus for everybody.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's line. We had a great interview with a guy, Dr. Lusher from Ohio State, where they've just implemented a new undergraduate course in fasteners.
Yeah, he'll be at NIFS West as well.
Oh, I've never heard of or met him, but I guess I should be listening to that podcast.
Oh, you should, because he's a really, and he discusses a little bit of the work he's been doing with some of the motor car companies on the future of fasteners, and actually in aerospace as well, and in the Navy. So he's been in all over the place. He's a really interesting guy to talk to.
Yeah, it risks getting off topic, but the bearing people, as opposed to the fastener people, have created a course curriculum for junior colleges on distribution sales, because they feel there needs to be, some basic training to staff the inside order desk.
Yeah.
Whether you be selling plumbing supplies, bearings, fasteners, hardware, whatever. And I think that's a great thing. And we've actually made an effort to bring it to one of the local junior colleges here.
Yeah, interesting.
Anybody who's interested in backtracking and checking out that episode that featured Dr. Tony Lusher of Ohio State University should go to episode number 10. That was entitled That Full Threaded Flavor. It was a good episode. Check it out. You know, I have to ask you, Andy, before we started recording, you made a comment that some folks probably aren't aware of. You were involved in the radio yourself at some point. What was that all about?
I was hijacked into working in college radio in Cleveland, Ohio, and was involved as a DJ for a number of years doing, in those days it wasn't classic rock, it was just rock, and jazz shows. And from there I ended up in the educational and instructional television business, broadcasting graduate courses for the university that I worked for, and it's actually how I got to California.
Did you have a radio personality name? I mean, were you like Crazy Andy in the morning or something, or what was it? Did you have anything like that?
No, I honestly never did. Sorry, it just wasn't that exciting in the olden times. A couple of my friends did, but I just wasn't. I wasn't exciting, I guess.
Well, the important thing is that it segued you off into the thrilling industry that we all know and love, the fastener industry.
Well, you could do a lot of shows on this, but like many of the principals of many of the fastener firms, both at the importer, at the supplier level, and at the distributor level, I got into it because my family had been into it, and I couldn't get a real job.
Actually, we see that as one of the great, I guess, the impetus for change within the industry is the fact that the younger people who are coming into it are frequently the next generation of the people who own the industry, and they're really driving the change into the use of technology.
Yes, very much so. And yet you could argue that, like so many other industries, we're slow to adopt new technologies here.
Well, I've argued that many, many, many times. In fact, I would say that's an absolute one of the great laws of this industry. But change is coming about, and it really has to, because, I mean, to stay competitive, the industry has to modernize.
It's very needed. And interestingly enough, the same entrepreneurial old-timers that we're talking about. As I'm sitting here looking at your list of episodes, thinking to myself, I would love to do a survey of how many people in our industry, how many owners own an MP3 player? How many of them would know how to download? And you talk about the young kids coming in today who are familiar with all of these things, and they're also familiar with a world in which the idea of training or continuing education, or, hey, where do I go to get more information, are all things that are out there, and they are expectations.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, so Andy, now that you're the new president of Pac-West, what do you see as your greatest challenge?
That hasn't changed over the years. It's the same as it was when I was on the board of either of the associations 10, 15 years ago, and that is getting through to fastener distributors who don't participate and make them see how much value there is in working together with their competitors and other people in the industry for education, for networking, for all of the things that an association like this brings to the table.
Well, that sounds like a very worthy agenda, and it sounds like you guys are going to be doing some good work in Vegas coming up, and we'll certainly be there paying attention and watching what's going on. We really do appreciate you being with us, Andy, very much.
I do, and thank you very much for having me.
I want to also point out that people who are interested in learning more about Duncan Bolt should visit their website, and they can do that at www.duncanbolt.com. Thanks again, Andy, and we'll talk to you in Las Vegas.
Thanks again, Eric, and thank you, Brian.
Oh, that's our pleasure.
Greg Wiener's coming up next. Stick around.
This is Sue Rice with the FCH team. It's my job to make sure that as an FCH member, you receive the highest possible benefit from your participation in the network. Did you know that once you're logged into FCH, you have access to exclusive search tools, site statistics, and tracking information about your inventory and source finder inquiries? It's all just a click away, and I'm happy to walk you through it. If it's time to refresh your inventory, don't worry. We'll run your listings through our scrubber software and get you up and running in a very short time. If you can attach a spreadsheet to an email, you can list inventory on FCH. We can also show you how to optimize your listings to attract the most hits for your type of fastener. Send email to Sue at fastenersclearinghouse.com and let me help you get the most from the FCH sourcing network. I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Hi, this is Mike Fitzpatrick. I'm with Northwest Fastener, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
In the brief history of Fully Threaded Radio, we had an episode that really drew quite a bit of feedback, and that was episode 9, which we called Don't Thread on Me. One of the reasons we got so much feedback was because of our outspoken guest on that episode, and he's joining us again, as promised, right before election time. He's Greg Wiener with Quickscrews International. They're based out of Livermore, California. Greg, thanks for being with us again.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate joining you here.
Well, you do a good job of putting your views out there on your website, and we talked a little bit about that during the last episode. But before we get too much into what you're seeing on the political horizon, here it is late October. What do you see in business-wise? Are things, have they changed significantly since last time we talked, or what are you seeing, Greg?
Well, I am seeing some changes that are both positive and negative. The change we're really seeing here is in relationship to the fact that our customers seem to have, hit their bottom in terms of we're not really shrinking anymore. I'd say for the past 6 months, we've pretty much stabilized that. Now we're on the flip side of where we're starting to get some upturn, but there seems to be a continual problem with fulfillment coming out of, Asia. All of Asia, Taiwan, China, Malaysia, Vietnam, India. It's rough right now, and that's one of the reasons that I'm heading out to Kaohsiung for the big Fastener Show next week, so that I could get together with our people. You can always get more done with your suppliers when you meet them face-to-face, and as I spoke before, you can get a lot more done if you meet them face-to-face in their home country. So we're going there. I'm going there to try and work with our vendors through these problems. We'll probably pick up some new vendors, meet some new people. Most importantly, we'll also be looking for new products. We're trying to expand what we do. We are concerned about our industry in specifics, not fasteners, but really furniture, cabinetry, and construction, which we all know has been probably the worst hit of any industry during the recession.
Okay.
That's kind of what I got going right now. And it's very important to us that what's going on in the world is interesting, because you see one of the areas that I'm concerned about is the government's intervention with China and what they're trying to do with forcing China's hand on the RMB. This would not be good for Americans and people in the U.S., but our government likes to pick foils, or let's say our current government. I don't know if it's always been that way. Likes to pick foils, and China seems to be a good one right now.
What's the logic behind that? Do you have a guess on this?
Yeah, well, it's pretty clear. What the logic is this: if the U.S. government can force the Chinese to increase the value of their currency, it makes their exports more expensive, and basically people in China are importing our product, it makes our product less expensive. So it does help us export more product to there. The problem with that line of thinking, what it does on the flip side, is right now in America there's about $300 billion a year worth of goods imported. If the government succeeds, they will instantaneously raise price on all $300 billion worth of those goods. And that's not good, because the majority of imports in this country sold through stores like Walmart, Target, and that generally serves a lower income portion of America. And so those people are going to get hurt disproportionately in a negative way. Doesn't make sense to me. So that's where I disagree with our government.
Are you aware of what's happening with the Nucor litigation and its ramifications on the currency valuation? And I know recently there was some headlines about a portion of the case being dismissed, but do you have any insight on that part of the Nucor situation, Greg?
Yeah, I do. In terms of that, I believe initially all 7 claims of Nucor's got thrown out, and that none of them were validated, but they left the door open for refiling claims in a more, I believe what the claim was is that they were not targeted enough and they were too broad. And so the government said, no, that you can't do that, and Nucor was supposed to go back. It's interesting because, see, you look at a world like Nucor, which I would call the big bolt world or the big steel world, and that market, and there's still plenty of domestic manufacturing of that product line. So whether or not they have a valid claim, I don't really know. But take my product line, for example, and a lot, if you take sheet metal screws or small screws typically, who's making that product in this country? I mean, where's the imbalance? There's really nobody making it. So if nobody's making it, why should we raise the duties? That doesn't make any sense. And I think this is why Nucor got in trouble, is because they wanted to raise the duty on any import fastener without any proof.
Sure, they weren't able to prove any damages being caused.
Right. Well, how can there be damages caused if nobody in this country is making those products? There's no damages. In fact, one might argue that we have a right as importers to go to the customs and say we shouldn't pay any duties because there are no domestic manufacturers of this product. I mean, that's a valid argument, and that's how Nike won their argument, and they don't have any duties on their tennis shoes because of it, because nobody makes tennis shoes in this country anymore.
That's true.
Yeah, but I'm a little too busy to go sue the United States government, and I've done it before. It's not a lot of fun.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What are the details of that?
Well, I was embroiled in a customs dispute. Our product line is basically a coarse thread tapping screw for lack of better terminology. That's what it is. But the IFI refuses to govern it. All right? Both myself and Bob Hooper of American Bolt have gone to IFI multiple times asking them to govern this product line, and they won't do it because they tell us it's not enough volume or interest worldwide. I don't really know. I mean, between us and American Bolt, we're each selling in excess of a couple of billion screws a year. That would seem to be enough volume to get some tech organization behind it, but they won't do it. So what happened in that particular situation was the customs declared that the screws I was selling were wood screws, not tapping screws, and the duties on wood screws is 12.4%. The duties on tapping screws is 6.2. So I said, no, I got to fight that. That's not what they are. And the United States Customs is exactly like the IRS. They rule first, they take your money, they hit you with the higher duties, and then you fight to get it all back, which I did. It took me about a year and a half and about $65,000, $70,000 in legal fees, and we won. I didn't get my legal fees back, but I won the case. But that was my intervention with Customs, and it was really a complete waste of time. There was precedence on hand that Customs had already ruled, and yet they still went ahead with the ruling against me, and that was just wrong. I mean, they had precedent that had already been fought this case back in '81, and for some reason the individual customs agent just said, "No, we don't care about precedent. We're going to reclassify this."
Man, listening to this, it really makes me want to go to bat for something like an appendectomy or an MRI. You know? Go fight the government bureaucracy while you're holding your side and wincing in pain.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem when the government takes over things. Who do you appeal to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The government rules against you. That's it. That's it.
Yep.
I mean, look what they're doing just in the past couple of weeks. It's just been mind-numbing to me. You know, election season brings out the worst in a lot of people.
Well, we've got an election coming up here in a couple of weeks. It's not a presidential election, but there's a lot of prognostication of a landslide. What are you seeing?
If you're looking for my prediction, the House will change. It's almost impossible that it won't. You know, for people who aren't as wonky as you and I and such, the Democrats are going to lose a lot of seats in the House. They'll lose the majority. Nancy Pelosi will be out, and I'm sure that many people will be happy.
Myself included, actually.
Well, I'm sorry, but I just can't buy into one of the best stimuluses there are food stamps and unemployment. That just is. I mean, that's just I cannot wrap my head around it. Okay, I just every time I try and understand it, I just go, what?
That was an astoundingly stupid comment she made.
Yeah.
But she keeps making it over and over again. I don't understand. Somebody should tell her, Nancy, that's not the way it works in the real world.
Well, they don't have no idea what the real world is. That's the essential problem, isn't it?
No, politicians don't know what the real world is. And you know what? That's going to change. If you look at what the Tea Party has done, and, you know, love them, like them, hate them, think about them, whatever they are, I don't know. You know, it seems to me a bunch of people got together and basically said, the government's too big, we're spending too much and we're borrowing too much, and there's no end in sight. We have to stop. Most of us all know, because we all have to balance our checkbook, most of us all understand that you cannot spend more than you make forever. It doesn't work.
Well, it's clear that there are a lot of people across the country inside the fastener industry and elsewhere who have some misgivings, but we've got a midterm election coming up, and there are a few very noteworthy elections. Now, in your neck of the woods, of course, we've got the Senate election with Barbara Boxer, and then, of course, we've got the Nevada Senate election, and that's got a lot of attention, too. What are your thoughts? What do you see on the horizon for that, Greg?
Well, let's take the Nevada situation first. I just read about their debate last night, and it looks like Ms. Engel held up her position quite well against the leader of the House. I mean, what does it go to tell you when the leader of the House, who has been the leader of the House the Senate, Harry Reid, for so long, and he is under 50%. He cannot get 50% of the people in his state to vote for him. For an incumbent leader, majority leader, that's mind-numbing. That tells you how upset the electorate is. You know, 14% unemployment in Nevada, that's a big number. And so I think Mr. Reid is in trouble. He's got a lot of money, and he's been there a long time, but I think he's going to lose that race. I really think the people have just had enough. One of the interesting things is that the Democrats can't do, and it isn't working this year, is trying to skew the electorate towards social issues, and it doesn't matter. It's just the economy is so bad that you can't run on that, and that's always been helpful to the Dems and hurtful to the Republicans. But this time, there's no getting around it. It's all about finances and economy.
He annoys and infuriates me, that character. He's in the wrong country. He should have been in Stalinist Russia.
Yeah, he's got some interesting viewpoints, that's for sure. However, nobody is as liberal as Barbara Boxer. And for me, in California, I've seen the 18 years of havoc she's wreaked on this state. Look at her signature issues. Her two signature issues, one's social, that's abortion. That's a social issue that I don't think is really going to sell this year. And the second issue is she's a big global warming alarmist. She sits on top of a whole chain of big problems. But you know what? I hate to say it, but I think Carly's having a hard time busting through that.
It's pretty tight, isn't it?
It's very tight, and, I'll give Boxer credit. She can fight. She knows how to campaign. I'm only hoping that, the numbers are that turnout, because we need huge turnout differential in here to elect Republicans. I mean, the Dems out-register us about 3.5 to 1. So we have to out-turnout. We just can't. We're not going to outvote them. I think it's kind of interesting, the stark difference between the two. I mean, you've got a lifetime politician, career politician, versus a lifetime business person. And isn't this what the real debate is about today?
The choice is pretty clear there.
Choice is clear. I mean, I read last week that it's now just basically the argument is big government, limited government. That's the argument. Now, historically, when that's the argument, the Dems have not done well. Because really, in this country, there's only about 27% liberals.
Well, then let's change the focus here and look at the California gubernatorial race, because it's another pretty clear-cut decision to be made. And what do you see happening there, Greg?
I would be shocked if California reelected Brown for a third time.
Uh-huh.
It would floor me. I mean, if we don't know this guy by now, holy crap. I mean, unless it's a bunch of old mess of people, the guy's so old that they didn't even know, they weren't even born when he ran the first time around, I guess, But no, I mean, come on. The guy's still Moonbeam, I see Meg Whitman winning that, and she deserves to win it. She really, I kind of laugh at the minor little nationwide little exposure here that Miss Gloria Allred did. Did you guys catch that news?
Sure, with the maid.
With the immigrant and the maid.
Yeah.
Did you know that she also did the same thing to Arnold when she pulled out the woman who claimed Arnold abused her? She was the same woman who pulled that stunt when Arnold ran. This is what Gloria Allred does. I mean, she's a publicity seeker.
Well, it didn't work too well that time.
It didn't work this time. Look, when you don't have facts on your side, you resort to lies, misrepresentations, and flat-out untruth. It's like, okay, I can't win on the facts, so why don't I just destroy the character of the other person?
Well, if they actually paid any attention to facts, they'd all resign in Washington for a start.
Well, now it's even, yeah, exactly. But now it's even worse. Now people are claiming to make up their own facts. So now you got to look at three different things just to figure out what the heck the real fact is. It's really bad. I mean, I'm sorry, but come on. Last week, these leaders are throwing out aspersions on the Chamber of Commerce, breaking the law with no evidence. None.
Yeah. So what's unusual about this?
Well, that's just we can't do that. That's not the right direction. We can't do that. So regarding the gubernatorial race, I'm pretty sure Meg will pull it off. But if Brown does, boy, we're in for a long 4 years.
Right. So we've got Reed losing it in Nevada. We've got a tight one in the Boxer race, and we've got a Republican win in the California gubernatorial. Let's talk about issues. What do you see going down the road in terms of rolling back the tax hike that's coming up?
Well, let me get in my 2 cents. It says this is about 2 years too late. This decision should have been made 2 years ago. Business is not like politics. We actually plan. We need to know our tax situation more than 15 days in advance. And it's really, really and completely negligent of the United States Congress to put the American public and the American business person in this much of a stranglehold? Why do you think nobody's going to hire? Why do you think we're having so many problems? Because none of us in business know what the taxes are going to be. So now we got to come back in a lame duck session, and we got to discuss a tax increase. Everybody likes to say, oh, the Brooks tax cuts, the Brooks tax. This is current law. This is what our tax rate is today. If the Congress does nothing, everybody's taxes go up. If the Congress does something, then they don't have to go up. We're either going to stay the same or get our taxes increased. That's what's happening here. From my point of view, I think the Republicans have it right and the Dems have it wrong. Basically, the Republicans say, hey, it's a recession. Why are we raising taxes on anybody in a recession? That's pretty correct. The Democrats say, oh my God, no, we're broke. We have to have money. We can't. If we let those taxes expire on those rich people, then hey, that's going to cost the government $700 billion. Now, they don't tell you that if they give a tax cut to everybody but the top 2%, that costs $3.2 trillion. But that's what it is. Now, there's no such thing as a cost. Revenue. This is revenue. The government gets revenue through its taxes. It's not a cost. So therefore, when they say they can't afford it, that's just nonsense. It's nonsense. It's not a cost to the government. It's less revenue. So what are they going to do? They're not going to change taxes. They're not going to go up. So that's what they're going to do. So they're going to pass another law, and it's either going to be temporary, 2 years. They may go permanent on everybody but, quote-unquote, 250 plus, which is I think we discussed whether or not who thought that was wealthy last time, but yeah. Whatever. My prediction is this. Taxes will not go up because in the end, how do I want to say it? Since the midterms is over and they have to make this decision after the midterms, if taxes go up, that is going to hurt Obama in 2012.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say that they wouldn't go up as a result of the November election.
No, I don't think the election has anything to do with it because they could. Here's what's funny. The only bipartisanship in the past 2 years that has gone on has always been Dems joining Repubs from their point of view. Okay? The only bipartisan viewpoint about this tax situation is that the bipartisan viewpoint is taxes should not be raised during a recession. The ideological viewpoint is, no, we must raise taxes on this set of people. So you tell me what's going on there, okay? Right. You know, that's reality. The bipartisanship is for no tax increase. The ideological viewpoint is for it, a tax increase.
All right, we're gonna wind this up with one more question, and this one's going to bring it back into the purview of the fastener world.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with fastener sales going forward as a result of all of this, Greg? We're going to put you on the hot seat.
I truly think that companies like mine and others have got to diversify. And as long as we continue to diversify and stay ahead of the curve in that diversification, there's always going to be markets we can sell fasteners to. I mean, if they do pass a lot of these initiatives in energy, solar, wind, those have a lot of fasteners. Those are good for our business. And so we'll take those as we come. And I think fasteners is here to stay, and so are we.
Wow. Okay. I hope you're right.
I hope so, too.
Listeners can go to your website at www.quickscrews.com and read your blog. You update that pretty regularly, and they can get the latest thoughts that you have.
Yeah, if I could put in a plug on I will be putting out a pre-election blog right around the 30th. That'll be a little bit longer than normal with maybe some more bolder straight-out predictions. So if you want to see that, right around the 30th, the first of the month, it'll come out.
Perfect. Greg Wiener, enjoy your trip to Taiwan, and we really do appreciate you being with us again for Fully Threaded Radio.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Okay. Thanks, mate.
Don't miss the exciting conclusion of Fully Threaded coming up next.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund, www.semperfifund.org. Over the past 7 years, twice a year, the wonderful people who operate the Semper Fi Fund and many amazing Marines who have been the beneficiaries of the charities that have supported the Semper Fi Fund, including many thousands of individual donors, have come into my radio studio to tell their amazing stories of serving their country, of being wounded, and how the Semper Fi Fund has helped them make that transition back to recovery. Unfortunately, Bethesda and Walter Reed are full again. More and more men and women are coming back from the war injured, sometimes awfully so. We need the Semper Fi Fund to be there for these Marines and those soldiers, sailors, and airmen who served alongside of them. Please consider a gift to the Semper Fi Fund. Very low overhead, extraordinary capacity to get money where it needs to get in a hurry, and great management, including some of the senior Marines who've ever served under the flag. When you're looking for something to do that will make an impact, please check out the Semper Fi Fund. That's www.semperfifund.org, www.semperfifund.org.
This is Jackie Ventura with iFast Group, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio. Back to the show.
Brian and Eric, shovel ready, back with you in Fully Threaded Radio.
Camouflage up and shields up, I would think, after Greg's predictions.
That was pretty good, huh?
Yeah, he's a guy. He really knows how to put it out there, and he's not frightened of doing so.
No, and he does it pretty well. I'm looking forward to seeing his blog, as he explained, and we'll see what his expanded predictions are.
Right, yeah.
And it was also really great listening to Andy Cohn. The guy has so much knowledge. I hope that he'll come back. So many of the subjects that we talked about, we could really spend a long time on and just really explore.
Yeah, he's an easy guy to talk to, and people who I know in Pac-West have recommended him really highly. Speaking of the Pac-West conference, I see that John Waltz has put a story on Global Fastener News describing a video about Anne-Marie Howtailing, and she is going through and explaining the art of sales, and this is much the same as part of what she went through at the Pac-West conference. It was a great talk, and it's worth going to Global Fastener News to have a look at this. Yeah, that does sound worthwhile. I'll have to take a look at that. You know, these presentations at NIFS West, these things are really turning out to sound pretty worthwhile. I hope I can get into as many as possible. We're going to be pretty busy at our booth. We'll be in booth 1321, by the way, folks. Please do stop by. If you're heading out to Las Vegas this year, we'd be very glad to meet you. Yes, please do. Yeah, usually it's good. We get a good mixture of new people walk by and see the logo and sort of equate it to something. Usually they hold up a cross when they see it. But I really enjoy it, actually. And this year, now that we're Facebook and Twitter guys, the sky's the limit. Wow, yeah, that's right. We actually did put up a Facebook page for Fully Threaded. It's not fully activated, I guess, but it's there. That's right, and we've been using Twitter to broadcast some of the developments, some of the new guests that we've had on and so forth, and we're going to be experimenting with that and rolling with it, and I still can't get used to the whole idea of tweeting, though. It just doesn't work for me. Isn't twittering better? I mean, I know they call it tweeting, but I don't like to tweet. I like to call it twittering. What do you think? I think that if the site's called Twitter, then what you do is you Twitter, and you are involved in twittering. Tweet's different. Different word.
Right, but that's not the nomenclature, you know?
That's right. Well, I need to go back and get the Oxford English Dictionary or the Oxford American Dictionary.
Well, I don't know if that's even a battle worth fighting, but...
No, absolutely, definitely not. What do we do, fight with 600 million people?
Well, if it's Twittering or if it's tweeting, I'll be doing that, I guess, hoping to publicize the Fastener Talk meetup that Traveling Salesman has been talking about on his blog. He's trying to get something set up for after the Fastener reception on Monday night out there in Vegas, and trying to get some of his readers to meet up, I guess, for an after party, and we'll see how that works. But if you're interested, go to the Fully Threaded Twitter page, become a follower, and when I shoot the time and place out, I hope you'll receive it and meet up with us. Thanks to our guests on today's episode, Rob Lucas of Fidelis Fasteners, Andy Cohn of Duncan Bolt, and also Mr. Greg Wiener of Quickscrews International.
Yes, thanks to all of them.
You can communicate with us anytime. We'd be very glad to hear from you. The email address is ftr@fullythreaded.com. That's ftr@fullythreaded.com. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what suggestions you have.
Right, and as you know, you can always subscribe to our podcast. The links to do that are right on the homepage of Fully Threaded. You can go to your iPhone. You can now subscribe to a BlackBerry. And you can also just click on the arrow and you can listen to it on your own computer, okay?
That's right, and we welcome all the new subscribers. Every show we seem to get a few more. Hey, I was also glad during our conversation with Andy Cohn to hear that he kind of bought into that whole tattoo idea. I was kind of surprised by that, but he seemed to dig it.
Yeah, this was a bit of a wild idea proposed by the traveling salesman. The view is that you could identify yourself as a fastener person at this special secret party by having a special fastener tattoo.
Well, everyone seems to have their own rendition of how this thing should work. ScrewCrew.com's Andy Pelz was also on the hunt for some fastener tattoo art, and I don't know if he ever came up with anything or not. So I actually did a little bit of research, and over there at Mandalay Bay, which is where NIFS is being held, of course, I remembered that there was actually a tattoo parlor or a studio right there in the mall, right off of the casino. And, in fact, there is one, and it's Mario Barth's Starlight Tattoo.
I don't know, maybe after you're winning big you go and get a tattoo. I couldn't imagine the people wandering in and having a tattoo at the Mandalay Bay.
Well, this is a different subculture that perhaps we don't have a very good understanding of, but it's thriving because they have another facility also down the strip, I guess, somewhere, and this is a pretty well-known outfit. And so I called, and I thought it might be fun to get some information out of them, and even I was wondering if we could do a segment, the short segment here on FTR. I don't know if it was such a good idea, though. The gal I talked to, she said that I should get with the manager who was at the other location, and his name's Angelo.
Angelo, okay. Now, you sort of convinced that many of our listeners really, really are into tattoos?
Well, I was thinking, for example, if you wanted to go in there and you wanted to get a tattoo that said National Industrial Fastener Show West 2011, what would that run you? Down your forearm, maybe.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, what do you do next year? Have it crossed out?
Well, I think you're missing the point. Tattoo people, they don't really think about things in those terms.
Okay, clearly I missed the point.
Well, I asked the gal if Angelo might be interested in doing a little bit of a segment with us, and she didn't really seem too excited about the idea. I said, well, does he have any kind of a sense of humor? And she basically said, no. Well, I don't know.
So maybe you'll be peeking your head in just to see who this Angelo really is.
Well, I could tell you this. Maybe after the traveling salesman's after party, somebody will go in there, and if so, tell them Fully Threaded Radio sent you.
I don't know where this is going, but I'm going to have a secret handshake.
A little less intrusive, I know what you mean. All right, folks, that one will put episode 14 in the can.
Bye.
For Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll talk to you next time.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fasteners Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.
I can't think of anything else to say at the moment, okay?